Joseph.
And I'm Nick.
And this is Fish Jelly.
Yes, we see.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay.
It's Juneteenth this weekend.
Yeah, Monday.
Mm-hmm.
You went out last night.
You went with me for a little bit.
Yeah. How was it?
It was good. Because I originally wanted to go to a bar I like to go to, Act Bar, and they had the theme last night was an homage to Black queer electronic house music, and I actually danced a lot.
What kind of music? Like, did you recognize the songs?
Oh yeah. They were threaded in there some recognizable stuff, and then like longer kind of riffs that I didn't know who the artists were, because there are no lyrics, but there was some Missy Elliott in there, and um, I'm trying to forget. Yeah, you would have recognized some, especially towards the earlier part, like around 11 o'clock, as we get to close, and it's just I don't know what I was dancing to.
Okay. Moving on. I was going to tell the story of a place we went to get pizza, of a place we went to have pizza last week.
Which
I don't, but now I don't know.
Why?
Well, I don't want to say the name of the place because that seems like mean, but
you don't want to ruin them?
Well, because
I'm kidding. It's not mean. I think it's how is somebody supposed to know they need to
how
improve
about this?
if you don't
I
tell
was
them?
on Instagram and I saw some imagery of some pizzas.
Some imagery of pizza.
Some imagery of pizzas. They had like these custom gourmet looking pizzas.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, oh, we should try it. So we went 2 weeks ago, and then we realized that it's a pop-up. So it's a pop-up inside of like a barbecue.
Yes, which is, to me, that seems very strange and kind of like how Parasite works. But if you think about it. But yeah, that's the nature of the pop-up, le pop-up.
So
I guess.
So it's this barbecue place in Pasadena. So we go and
we ate at the barbecue place
because we realized that they don't like the pop-up pizza place is not available on the day we went because we went on like a Wednesday or a Tuesday and they're only available Thursday through Sunday. But anyway, we go to the barbecue place and the service was awful.
Not at the fault of the people per se.
The server was very nice.
Yes,
but it was a cluster.
I think they maybe didn't have enough people, and they have their menu. Their menu is impressive, and I did like my food, but they had a large array of beers to offer, and they only had.
The server immediately was like, "We don't have this." When you start off by being told we don't have this, and this,
like 15 things, just
15 things. And then we were already disappointed because we didn't get the pizza because it wasn't available. So we ordered other food and it was good.
It was good.
Yeah. So then a week later we go, now that we know that the pop-up is only there Thursday through Sunday. So we go and again, service is not great. The host was not. She does play an integral part in the story.
She does. I warmed up to her greatly, but she seems kind of like stank.
She was real stank. Yeah. But anyway, so we're seated and we're excited because we finally get to order this pizza. So I let you choose I had in my mind thought you should get a pizza you want because I want to try something from their actual menu. Mm-hmm. And I did enjoy my food.
I did. You got a nice little pastrami sandwich.
But you ordered something, I think it was called the Mona Pizza.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what was on that pizza. It was like pepperoncinis with some kind of like cheese that was almost like ricotta, maybe.
They had burrata cheese on there.
Pesto drizzled.
Yeah, and some cherry were those pimentos? Anyway.
You know how I feel about pimentos.
Oh, yeah.
But, man, that has to be the worst pizza.
It's the worst pizza I've ever ordered. Like I would have made, and I don't have a pizza oven. I would have made a better pizza at home because it was a large rectangle that's basically on felt like some kind of focaccia that had cooked too long because the bottom was burnt. Like we could not cut through
When
it.
I tell you it was impossible to cut through with the like regular knives we get, these weren't steak knives, like kind of the damn butter knives you get at a restaurant. It was impossible to cut through it.
Then they were metal utensils, and the top was all that because there was a lot of cheese and it was congealed.
It looked like they just, I think it's exactly what you said because it is a pop up. Maybe they came to the restaurant with all of the dough already like made and baked, and then they thought, oh, we can just throw it in the oven for a few minutes to heat up the toppings. But then, yeah, it just felt like the top, like it was cold.
It was cold and the bottom was overcooked.
Okay. So important to know, you don't like wasting food.
I don't.
And I'm very frugal. So if I pay for something, it's like I don't want to pay for something I didn't use or consume. But we ate my food. And then we
didn't eat much of the pizza.
We didn't even eat like a one full slice
between us
because we couldn't cut through it.
Right.
So we sat there for like 20 minutes just with this pizza sitting on the table. And I didn't realize this, but you witnessed the host and the server kind of like looking and pointing at us. Like there was something wrong. So finally the hostess comes over.
She comes over and she's like, how you like your pizza?
But she did it in a way because she had not been friendly the first 2 times we went there, and like she seated us.
She wasn't unfriendly.
I don't think she shouldn't be a hostess.
Well, no, she doesn't like her job, that's for sure. But I wouldn't constitute her behavior as being unfriendly.
But the way she approached us was like she almost was reveling in the fact that we didn't like the pizza because maybe they don't like that this pizza place is at their restaurant or something.
She looked like the cat had got the canary.
Yes. Yeah. She seemed excited. She's like, oh, so there's something wrong. And I'm like, so I said, I'm sorry. I've never done this before, but like, I can't eat this. Like,
and she picked that up. She's like, I'm going to take this to my manager right now.
She was very quick.
And then right behind her, the waiter the server brought us free shots. Like they were waiting in the eaves with free shots.
So I think they knew that this pizza was some bullshit and that we probably weren't the first customers to complain about how awful the pizza was. So they were waiting for us to complain. But we didn't have to because they asked us.
The host comes back and she's like, okay, y'all want me to box this up for you? And I said, no.
And that's bad because...
and she goes, okay.
Yeah. In the decades I've been eating out, I have never like sent food back. I just won't finish it, but I'll pay for it. And I figure now I know this is not the place to come for this item.
No.
But this was like, this was terrible.
It was bad. I think it was just like, the insult to injuries. Like we drove to Pasadena. Twice.
Granted, the parking situation in that area of Pasadena is pretty favorable, but
it's easy. It's pretty cute down there.
It's cute.
There are other restaurants, I'd say I'd like to try, but but even this barbecue place was actually pretty good. The food was good.
We went.
The bathroom was a mess.
We used to go to BJ's, that chain.
Yeah.
And they used to have really great hand tossed pizzas. And then the pandemic and all, like, well, no, we went before the pandemic.
I think that was before the pandemic.
It was. So we had gone for a couple years. Then we knew someone who was like a manager there. So we would kind of go and
you get free shit
and get some free shit sometimes. But anyway, we hadn't gone in like a while because my job used to be located in an area next to BJ's. So I think that's why we would often find ourselves there. And we used to live down the street. But then we moved and my job moved. So then we didn't find ourselves at BJ's. But then we go after a couple of years.
On a lark.
And we're like, let's get the shit we used to get.
Ooh.
When I tell y'all, it wasn't as bad as the pizza we got from this place in Pasadena.
It wasn't, but it was a $40 DiGiorno mix.
But it was a $40 pizza that tasted like the pizza you get in school. Like in 1984, when I would go to school and get the pizza from the cafeteria, this was like on that level. So I think because of the price, it just felt like a slap in the face.
Yes.
And then last night we ordered pizza on DoorDash because we live by a big food hub, which I'd never seen before. But apparently there are these like mega kitchens in certain like more densely populated areas where they'll have multiple restaurants. So there's one of those literally like a 5-minute walk from our house.
Yes.
Not even 5 minutes.
Not even.
And they have like 30 restaurants inside. But I think we've come to learn that not all of those kitchens are in there. The
No.
food is being brought to this place and then you pull it from a locker, which is super convenient because we can get a lot of food
For
options
fast and decently priced.
and it's decently priced because we're not paying for delivery. We're going to go pick it up. But man, that you waited so I felt so bad because I ordered this pizza and then I sent you over there to go get it. And you waited for like what, 20 minutes
Yeah, because
after they had said it was ready.
yes, yeah, because that's when I started walking because it would be ready by the time I got there, and then of course I didn't order it on my phone, so I had to have you text me some bullshit and then look up your name manually, and they're like, "Well, your order's been delayed," and of course there's no real service there.
But the upside is the pizza's good.
The pizza was not worth the hassle.
No, but I would order it again.
Sure, like from them directly.
Yeah, now I feel like probably won't be ordering from.
I don't like going in there.
No, it's awkward because it's all these Uber drivers, Postmate drivers, DoorDash
Mhm.
drivers, and
And homeless people asking for food outside. But yeah,
so they're very aggressive. So then, they're. It's just a very tense environment, and it's like I'm just here to pick up the food I bought. Like I'm not gonna jump in my car and go deliver it. So I feel like people seem impatient, and
and then lined up, and then people park in the middle of the street
they park in the middle of a major street
of
in LA.
Western Avenue.
Yeah,
Mhm.
like which is like playing Frogger. Like as a person who lives here and drives that street every day, it makes me so anxious. Like one day I'm going to hit an Uber driver.
Yeah, because people are flitting in and out, and then but also in front of the venue, a ton of people are parked. Usually, well, they're as they're parked on every street, but a lot of people just park and eat their shit in their car.
We spend way too much time talking about bad pizza. I probably will edit it, but probably not.
Oh, now we need to go back to Masa.
Yeah, they have good pizza. Uh, I also keep saying I don't want to talk about Drag Race, and then every week we've talked about it. But the only thing notable about the most recent episode, because we already know one contestant left,
Mm-hmm.
and then this past episode, two contestants tried to leave.
One of them more aggressively, but yeah.
And then RuPaul had to literally come back into the workroom and be like,
talk to the children. Yeah, and this is All Stars.
I was embarrassed for them.
It does not feel like All Stars.
No.
It didn't from the get, but L.I.E, what did we do?
The one thing that one of them said, or that RuPaul said that I thought made them like really should resonate with people is like, you're supposed to be professionals.
Yeah.
And it is not professional.
No.
To just give up or quit the minute things don't feel comfortable for you. That's what takes you to the next level, right?
Right.
Otherwise, you're just a basic person playing games around here. Like
the commitment is you're doing there's a time limit for you to be there. Just get through it. And I think it's worth mentioning. I hope Ms. Alexis Michelle watches herself and realizes how her behavior is a problem. Because I think, I grew up in a white middle class family, and I think it took some time to realize what does passive aggressive behavior look like.
Well, and this idea of like thinking that, I mean, I would also say that a lot of people like to assume the role of victim, and it's not a very appealing role.
It was because first one girl, you told us all that you want to have sex with L.I.E, so that she wanted two different roles in this little goddamn skit they're playing, and she to L.I.E, she's like, oh, you can have that one even though I want it, but she tries to fight Candy Muse, who I don't really like Candy Muse, but I was totally on board with how she reacted and what she said so Alexa Michelle tries to basically is gaslighting her, like, take this other role that's basically the same. What the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, for people who don't watch it, it's like, what are we talking about?
And then starts crying.
It just doesn't feel very like, these queens don't feel like they are the best of the best because their behavior seems like novices who want to run away, like grab their toys and run away. So I'm very unimpressed.
Well, and that, and like say L.I.E, for instance, who I do really like the runway. It's like the runways are.
Her aesthetic's raggedy. It is. I really, really like her, and she's a fabulous entertainer, but her drag is so raggedy. But, well, and then speaking of raggedy, we've been watching Queen of the Universe, that Paramount Plus competition reality show.
Oh my God.
Which is already, I enjoy it well enough because they sing songs. They have the budget to have these queens sing songs we all know. But to call like them drag queens, I don't think most of these queens perform in drag. They just are in drag
Well, they're
to be in this competition.
yeah,
Like they don't perform at bars, and they don't like their Instagram is not them in drag all the time.
because I would say like if I was wanted to sing on this kind of platform, I would totally be like, yeah, I'm gonna adopt a drag persona.
Yeah. Call me Nikki B, and
Yeah,
I'll look like a
and I do drag in my living room, and
yeah.
I could like Zane. What was that kid's name? Zane,
Well,
Aiden
no,
Zane.
or salt and sugar and salt, or sugar and
Yeah,
spice, what
hmm
salt and pepper. I
salt
don't
and
know.
pepper, salt and
But
straw.
speaking of raggedy, I love Vanessa Williams,
I do too.
but her makeup.
On the set, is it the second episode, the one where Mel
The
B's
first makeup, well, the first episode wasn't great, but the second episode,
where Mel B is absent?
for some undisclosed reason, because the judges are Mel B, Vanessa Williams, Trixie Mattel, and Michelle Visage, and Graham Norton hosted. But Vanessa's makeup was like,
You're like, it looks like her eyes are bleeding. Yeah, it didn't look cute. And then,
or like if Selma Blair did it.
yeah,
Because
bad
no, because Selma Blair made a video about, because she has a
MS.
MS, and so her dexterity is not the best, but she found this device to help with putting eyeliner.
Well, I think Vanessa needed that device.
And yeah, like
Yeah,
that was a bad joke.
And
baby.
then on the third episode, the one we just watched, it's the theme is like the first time. So you're seeing first pictures of these drag queens that are competing their first time in drag, as well as the judges, like when they're young children. And Vanessa Williams shows a picture from 1985.
So she looks fabulous.
But she's wearing the same outfit and the same hair, and it's like, okay.
I still really like her, but I think she comes across a little like,
she comes across as difficult because
Yeah.
okay, I don't like how the show's kind of treating Giselle Royale, who I think is very talented, and Giselle Royale sings Save the Best for Last in front of Vanessa, an homage to this bitch, and she does a pretty good job. Like I think a well enough job to where she should be proud of her work, really.
yeah.
And Vanessa Williams like turns to the judge and is like, I guess I should stand up now. And then Mel B has the audacity to tear into this woman once again, saying that it was nasally and basically castigating her for daring to sing in front of the diva who originated the song. It's like, Mel B, shut the fuck up.
How Mel B acts like a drug addict. That's what she acts like on stage. Like it's just everything out of her mouth feels so chaotic and like these sudden outbursts, and then she's overly excited about things, and then she seems really critical. Like anytime, because she went after Giselle the first time about singing Adele, then she went after someone else for singing Amy Winehouse. It seems like anyone British she has a problem with. Like you can't sing British artists,
right?
I don't know. I'd have a real hard time with some bitch who can't sing telling me about my vocals
But
when I know I sing better than you. But okay.
But to me, there's like an extra rudeness I'm picking up on to Giselle Royale, and I don't know if that's because she doesn't like trans ladies or what, but it feels uncomfortable. Because she keeps talking about how she wants to have constructive criticism. It's like, well, you seem like you don't like this lady.
It does feel uncomfortable. I don't know that I think Mel B is transphobic. I think Mel B is trying to be like a Simon Cowell. Like someone needs to be, because this is not her first time on a competition, judging a competition reality show. So I think that maybe she's learned that you have to have like a strong personality, because the judges who are kind of nice and whatever, they don't really.
No, but I think
like Leona Lewis, as much as I like her and she was so beautiful to look at, she really gave nothing. She didn't give good technical advice. She wasn't super passionate about anything. She just seemed like she was a pretty lady sitting on the table,
which I'm fine with. But Michelle Visage, I think, does.
I don't. Yeah, I think Michelle Visage is a good judge, and she looks fantastic. I don't care for her, but I'm not going to say she doesn't do a good job. Vanessa Williams is very knowledgeable, so she gives very like precise.
She does
critiques.
I think what I've grown to like about Michelle Visage is she actually seems empathetic, and there's a way to read people, and there's a time to read people too, and sometimes you don't need to every time. I don't know.
I don't think Trixie Mattel adds anything because she's supposed to be the one to comment on the looks.
Right.
But I feel like she's trying to be very nice, and then also Michelle Visage gives better critiques on looks than Trixie Mattel. But we can move on. Did you see Pat Sajak's retiring from the Wheel of Fortune?
I did see that.
Did you watch that as a kid?
I did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like one grandma watched that and one grandma watched Jeopardy. I prefer Jeopardy, but
So he'll complete the 41st season and then retire. That's crazy.
yeah,
Because, I mean, it really is like an institution.
it is. Vanna's been gone a while, right?
No, Vanna's still doing
She's
it.
still doing it.
Oh, is she not?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't watched that since I was a little thing.
I thought Vanna White is still kicking on.
I know she, well, because they did a tribute to her on Drag Race, but yeah, I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure she's still on Wheel of Fortune. No, I don't.
Well, be that as it may, maybe there's no retirement package. She can't leave.
No, she. Yeah.
I mean, it's. I don't think it's hard work, so why not?
Gosh. Wow.
That's not shade. I think it's a good gig.
It's a good gig. I don't think it's easy. Well, also,
Well, easy as in by now she's pretty got it down to a T. So
well, no, I don't think we can discount the pressure of having to maintain one's appearance. Like that lady has had to look fabulous
yes,
for 40
there
years.
There is that part,
and I think that that does take a toll on people.
looking good.
It's hard.
Mm-hmm.
I'm exhausted.
I know.
Anyway, moving on. So we have a few things in the sorry to this bad section.
We have a few things.
Yes. So number one, last week I think we talked about going to drag bingo.
Uh-huh.
And I was going on about because they were calling it Agbo. Like that was the name of the event. And,
yeah.
And so in last week's podcast, I was going on and on about how it didn't make sense to me. Why are they calling drag bingo Agbo? But I'm so stupid. We were at the Agbo corporate offices.
Mm-hmm.
So Agbo is an independent entertainment company based in downtown LA that's founded and run by the Russo brothers.
Which I didn't realize until we watched Extraction 2. And
so we were in their office at this party watching drag bingo and drinking and eating. But I was thinking, oh, Agbo is the name of the event. No, Agbo is the name of the company that was sponsoring this and whose offices we were in. So sorry to this man for talking shit about Agbo. Like, what a stupid name. It's a great name for a entertainment company, but it's still a silly name for a drag bingo.
Yeah.
Next, when I gave the recap of the crying game and I just said like, oh, like in the end, Fergus and Dill, is that her name, are free to be together. But
Fergus is
but but I left out a pretty important part, which is that Fergus went to jail. So they're not like free to be together. Fergus is in prison.
Yeah, he's in prison. She comes to that.
Yeah, but I didn't mention that. Okay. I never said that. So they weren't exactly free to be together. We were
distracted by her Whitney look.
And it's so funny I didn't mention them or Fergus being in jail, because when I say that she looks like Whitney from I'm Your Baby Tonight, that's the scene when she goes to visit him in prison. But anyway, and then in our Extraction 2 review, you said you gave Extraction 1.5, but you didn't. You gave Extraction 2.5.
I did?
Yeah. Oh. So you gave Extraction and Extraction 2 the same score.
Oh, I did?
Yeah. Because I had to go back and look.
Oh, because I looked on my Letterboxd and
no, in the video you gave it 2.5.
Oh, okay.
And then I forget, is it the video for The Blackening?
It's The Blackening, because I'm talking about Tim Story's filmography, and he directed Ride Along and Ride Along 2. And in my mind,
it starred Ice Cube and Charlie Day.
But that's the movie Fist Fight, which is not directed by Jim Story, but
Tim Story.
Tim Story, but it's more recent, so I think that was in my mind. And to be honest, I didn't like Fist Fight or either Ride Along film, but so I guess sorry to Kevin Hart and Tim Story.
Films released we didn't cover. Maggie Moore's.
Yeah, that just opened or premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival, which I would have been interested in, but we had a busy week. John Slattery of Mad Men fame directed. I think his last film, God's Pocket, I didn't really like. But it stars John Hamm and Tina Fey.
God's Pocket?
Yeah. Which I want to... Is Philip Seymour Hoffman in that before he died?
And there's something called Stan Lee.
A documentary about Stan Lee, which I have no interest in whatsoever. It's directed by David Gelb, who I have seen his previous work, such as the documentary Jiro Dreams of Sushi, which I remember liking, and it'll make you want sushi. And then that B sci-fi movie, The Lazarus Effect, with Mark Duplass and Olivia Wilde.
Projects of interest. Dust Bunny.
Oh my God. Anytime there is a new Sigourney Weaver project I'm made aware of, time stands still. Uh, she let it be known that she will be soon traveling to Budapest to film a project called Dust Bunny.
The story in IMDb says an 8-year-old girl asks her scheming neighbor for help in killing the monster under her bed that she thinks ate her family.
Yes, and Sigourney said she's like, well, I'm about to play not again another not very nice person, but I have fabulous costumes, and it is the directorial debut of Brian Fuller, who is the creator, I believe, showrunner of Hannibal, the television series, and Mads Mikkelsen of Hannibal will also be co-starring. I believe he'll be the aforementioned neighbor.
Well, I'm sure as images start to get dropped, your excitement will swell.
Oh yes.
Next, Bambi.
Sarah Polley, after her Oscar win for adapted screenplay for Women Talking, I guess Disney has hired her to do a live action Bambi, and by live action meaning a lot of CGI. What are they gonna do? But good for her. That's a big deal and should further her. Hopefully, there won't be a decade between projects again.
Let's take a break. Movies we watched for fun. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Yes,
The first Indiana Jones movie.
Yes, from 1981.
You wanted to watch this because we were going to see the new Indiana Jones.
The Dial of Destiny.
What year is Raiders of the Lost Ark?
81.
When do you recall seeing it first?
I think I recall seeing Temple of Doom first, being sick on the couch and it was on TV and falling in love. And then my mom bought me all three at separate stages on VHS. So this would have been probably 1992. I still remember the VHS cover. And the Last Crusade VHS, I remember finding in a grocery store called Festival Foods. Because remember, you could go to grocery stores and rent and or buy VHS tapes.
Yeah.
And gas stations too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember finding The Last Crusade in Festival Foods.
I liked Raiders of the Lost Ark well enough. I preferred
Temple of Doom.
Temple of Doom. Next, you watched Valkyrie.
Yeah, Brian Singer film about a Nazi officer who tried the last known recorded assassination attempt in-house on Hitler and its failures. But starring Tom Cruise, of course, and Carice Van Houten and Bill Nighy and a bunch of very notable British men playing Nazis, which, you know, what the film does look good is Tom Cruise has a glass eye in it, and it looks very real. How I thought they did a really good job on making this man look like he actually had a glass eye. But they treat this man like he's a hero, and he is not. It's kind of like the Mads Mikkelsen villain in Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which I won't talk about now. But there were Nazis that wanted to overthrow Hitler because they thought in the end he was ineffective or blinded by his own aspirations, and they thought they could do better in his boots. And not they treat the Tom Cruise character like he actually cares about the Jews dying. It's like, that man didn't care about that. He's not a hero. I don't know. I wish somebody realistically. I think it's interesting and compelling, but could we be realistic about how these are monsters devouring monsters? I don't know.
Cobra Verde.
One of the 5 Werner Herzog Klaus Kinski films, and it's one of there were only 2 I hadn't seen, even though I own it, and I still haven't seen Wojciech. But Cobra Verde was the last union between these two, who had a love-hate relationship that's well documented in My Best Fiend and what's that other documentary, Burden of Dreams. Anyway, what's interesting is Klaus Kinski plays this Brazilian thief bandit who loses his plantation, murders his boss that he works for, and then ends up working for this sugarcane plantation owner and impregnates his daughters. And as punishment, he sends him to the region of Dahomey, which that should sound familiar to you because we recently watched The Woman King, which is also
Hmm.
about this particular slave trade in that area. And it's supposed to be a death sentence for this man because the slave trade has uh, kind of ended, and any white man that travels there will get murdered by the locals, and he doesn't. He kind of reactivates the slave trade, and it's a very interesting um, kind of impressionistic view of this time in this place, and it's very much worth a watch. And it came out, I think it was a premiered at the Berlin Film Festival in '87, and the U.S. distributor went out of business, so it actually never was released in the U.S. until 2000.
Black Eye.
I like Fred Williamson. This is a blaxploitation film from 1974, directed by Jack Arnold. And Jack Arnold was big in big. His films from the 50s are notable because he directed Creature from the Black Lagoon and It Came from Outer Space. But here he is directing this very so-so blaxploitation film about a black private eye. That's what the title means. Who is hired to find this missing girl, and then a bunch of weird stuff happens along the way. Including this weird religious Christian cult. And the sideline, the tangential sideline, is real bizarre because he's in love with this beautiful black woman, but she is in a lesbian relationship with a white lady played by Rosemary Forsyth, and all of Rosemary's dialogue is terrible, like really bad and stupid. But again, it's an interesting scenario because they're basically fighting over this woman, and Rosemary's also saying she's kind of attracted to Fred Williamson, of course, uh, but it isn't very good.
Dead Souls.
I finally finished Dead Souls, which is like an
My people.
well, no, which I think must be a reference to the Nikolai Gogol novel, but it's a 2018 8-hour 15-minute documentary from Wang Bing, and it is
You watched
devastating.
an 8-hour documentary?
Yeah,
Ugh.
I had to watch it in 3 different parts, but the first 2 parts I watched before
Did
Cannes.
you enjoy it?
I did.
Okay.
I think it's so excellent, and it was shot from 2005 to I think 2017, and it's really just Wang Bing has interviewed the straggling survivors of the internment camps known as Xiaobang, Xiaobangu of the late 1950s, early 60s, where Mao Zedong locked up all these the rightists that were, if you critiqued anybody in the government for any reason, you got put in these intense labor camps. And it's really just a series of interviews of these very old men. I think all of whom died by the time the film was premiered, because they're interviewed. It's like this was in 2005, and they're like, oh, they died in one of the ensuing years. And it's just these men talking about their experiences and how they survived one of several clusters of camps, and it is harrowing, like the shit, because they basically were starved to death in these labor camps and with nothing to eat, and they'd be eating rocks and leaves and whatever they could get their hands on, and the experience they taught the effects on their body, like particularly their bowels.
Ugh.
They would like there's more than one of them talks about how they'd have to help each other scrape what they'd eaten out of their anuses, like their bleeding anuses. It's it I don't know. It's it's something to witness, and if you have the time and can make your way through it, I think it's really worth watching because I don't know. I mean, like I am like everybody. Like we're ignorant about certain. You read about these history. I've read about these internment camps, but to actually uh, sit and listen to somebody's experiences, you know, there's nothing like that. I thought it was moving.
Salome's Last Dance.
Salome's Last Dance.
Salome's Last Dance.
Yes. So Glenda Jackson died this week, so I tried to fit in some Glenda films, and I went back to my introduction to Glenda, which was in this film. I think we had just gotten cable, and I saw advertisements for Salome's Last Dance, and I could tell that it was very queer. And it was my introduction to Glenda Jackson and Ken Russell, and I begged my grandmother to buy me the DVD so I could watch it Because on cable, like I'd have to, my parents might walk by, and somehow I knew I should watch it alone. And she bought it for me, and I still have that DVD. So that's what I watched the other day. And it's Ken Russell doing kind of what he does, uh, taking an artist and kind of doing something very flamboyant with it. And I'm halfway through watching Marat Sade, and he's doing something kind of like that Paul Brooks film where Oscar Wilde is watching his band play Salome being performed in a brothel where the prostitutes are playing the roles, and Glenda Jackson is a brothel madam playing Herodias, and she got this full face of makeup on, and this must be the template for which made me fall in love with Isabelle Huppert, how this woman looks in this movie. So it was very fun to rewatch. It wasn't successfully received, but if you're a Ken Russell fan, I think you'll dig it.
The Romantic English Woman.
This was a Joseph Losey film I'd never seen, which I really liked. Basically about an author played by Michael Caine whose wife is malcontented. She goes on she just leaves one day on a trip to Baden-Baden and has a chance encounter in an elevator with Helmut Berger, who is in real life gay and was the partner of Lucchino Visconti for 12 years. And he's a poet, but kind of lives off people, and he comes to stay with the English woman and her husband, and things kind of there's a lot of tension going on between those three. It's also interesting reading about the behind the scenes. Losey, Glenda Jackson was two-time Oscar winner, and Losey thought she was boring to work with, and Michael Caine said he didn't appreciate that she'd eat something really garlicky during lunch because they had lovemaking scenes, which I think is funny because she just finished a film with Michael Caine called The Escape Artist, something like to that nature. The will now be her last film, but anyway.
Hopscotch.
You were in the room a little bit while I was watching this, starring Walter Matthau and Glenda, from 1980, directed by Ronald Neame, who you've seen The Poseidon Adventure. That might be what he's best remembered for in the U.S., but directed a lot of really interesting things, including a film after this with Jill Clayburgh and Walter Matthau, The First Monday in October, which I highly recommend. But this is fun. Walter Matthau is a disgraced CIA agent who's like curbed at a desk job and during his final years, and he works for a bunch of idiots. And in response, he writes a tell-all book that sends him in them chasing him before it can be published. It sounds like something. It was entertaining.
Mary, Queen of Scots.
And this I've been sitting on since I'd meant to watch it before that 2018 version of Mary, Queen of Scots with Saoirse Ronan and Margot Robbie as Queen Elizabeth and her Scottish cousin. But this is the 1971 film starring Glenda as Queen Elizabeth I, which is weird because that very same year she did a very notable television miniseries where she also played Queen Elizabeth I, and Vanessa Redgrave as Mary, Queen of Scots. It's interesting watching it because Redgrave, as a young woman, Saoirse Ronan kind of looks like her. I've never seen Ian Holm so young as the gay the Italian Riccio who was murdered in front of her. Timothy Dalton is also young, and it's directed by Charles Jarrett, who previously had directed Anne of the Thousand Days, which is of course about Anne Boleyn, who was Henry VIII's second wife, who was beheaded, with Richard Burton and Genevieve Bujold, and I highly recommend that film too. But this was a lot of fun to watch. I think I also am fascinated by that very particular period in history and all these terrible things people were doing to each other, and the history of Queen Elizabeth and Mary, Queen of Scots, is very compelling. Like these two queens, and Queen Elizabeth fearing that her cousin was going to try to take over rule of England, because there was a faction of the Scots who believed that Mary, Queen of Scots, was the true heir. And of course, Queen Elizabeth never married, never had children. She was known as the Virgin Queen, even though she wasn't. And it would be King James, the child of Mary, Queen of Scots, who was beheaded by Queen Elizabeth, that would eventually rule both.
And dipping into the obituary section again, Treat Williams died, which prompted us to watch The Substitute 2, Schools Out, which then led to us watching The Substitute. And then we watched The Substitute 3, Winner Takes All. We need to watch Substitute 4, which I
Yeah.
think is about neo-Nazis.
Yeah, it is.
But I didn't realize until I saw Treat Williams had died that we watched him in the movie The Ritz,
Yes.
which we have a podcast episode for. And then he's also in the film Hair,
Yeah.
which I haven't seen. I've seen productions of Hair on stage, but I would be curious to watch the movie.
I pulled out my Blu-ray, but we didn't have time yet, but I do want to watch that. Yeah.
Anyway, The Substitute 2 School's Out, I thought was a lot of fun. It's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but it is a gem. Let me tell you. Oh my God. I'd watch that one again.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. The Substitute stars
Tom Berenger,
which is taking itself a little more seriously.
Very.
And Tom Berenger is less appealing than Treat Williams. So that wasn't as fun.
And that's the first one's directed by Robert Mandel, who directed School Ties. Do you remember that movie with Brendan Fraser and Matt Damon?
No.
Where all I remember is there's a locker room scene. This is like 1992 or 3. And I know that Matt Damon is an anti-Semite.
Well, Substitute 3, Winner Takes All, I wasn't.
It's harder.
I even forget what the main premise was. Is that the one
where he goes to a college and it's about the football team?
That's right, the corrupt football team coach. And then God. Which one has J-Lo's ex-husband?
Which ex-husband?
Oh, the singer.
Mark Antony. That is the first one.
Oh, the first one.
That's because he's terrorizing Diane Venora. She gets Nancy Kerrigan.
That's right.
The Substitute 3, Winner Takes All, is directed by somebody named Robert Radler. And I'd be very curious to watch this early 90s movie he did called Showdown, starring Billy Blanks.
Oh, God.
And that kind of, on Amazon Prime, they have bios for...
Oh, we need to take a minute to talk about this because you looked up...
It was that Showdown movie with Billy Blanks.
No, but what prompted us to even start looking? Was it The Substitute 3?
Yes.
So we finished Substitute 3, and then, yeah, like you said, Amazon has this thing where it'll show the cast, and then there's a bio for each of them. And I am 100% convinced that AI is writing these bios. When you're done listening to this and you get home on Amazon Prime, you need to go look up like shit straight to DVD or video movies, and then look up the cast and see what they write about these people. Because it's like an alien robot wrote it.
Right, because some things are just like, it just mentions what they were in, and some things are like, they went to the Orange County School of Drama and were in love with cats.
It is so random, so hyperbolic. It's so out of control. I could sit and read those for hours.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, there are additional entries in the obituary section. So, of course, Treat Williams died.
Yes.
And what are his most known movies?
Hair, Prince of the City, a Sidney Lumet film that's pretty damn good, I think. I remember him as Michelle Pfeiffer's husband in The Deep End of the Ocean, which is a melodrama, which I could also rewatch right now. And I think he's James Franco's, is he his dad in 127 Hours?
Oh.
And he's in that movie about Allen Ginsberg, Howl. He did a lot, some of it not very good stuff, but I think one of my favorites is Smooth Talk, the Joyce Chopra film, which you've seen, where Laura Dern is that young girl. You know what? Smooth Talk has a lot of relations to this week's Secret film, where she's this young girl who's at the mall all the time. Do you remember Mary Kay plays the mom, and her parents leave to go on some trip, and then Treat Williams shows up, who's been kind of stalking her at the mall, and then is trying to get her to come outside. It's almost like a horror film. It's based on a Joyce Carol Oates short story that is also excellent.
And then, as you mentioned, Glenda Jackson died.
Glenda, 2-time Oscar winner. I don't really understand why she won for A Touch of Class, her second Oscar, because I don't think that's a very good movie. But I highly recommend Women in Love, where Oliver Reed and Alan Bates have the first recorded naked male nudity, the first male nudity, and they have a wrestling match. Which
for some, I don't know why, but 2 different people sent me links to a YouTube video of that wrestling scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what was said that made 2 different people send me those links.
I don't know, maybe
because you hadn't mentioned this.
So. I've mentioned it before, I think.
Well, yeah, when we reviewed The Shout.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I mean, I'm talking about like within the past week.
Oh, I don't. Maybe because of
I
Glenda. I don't know.
maybe.
Anyway, I highly recommend Women Love. Sunday Bloody Sunday, also where her and Peter Firth are in love with the same young boy. The Romantic English Woman, which I just watched. The Music Lovers, where she plays Tchaikovsky's ill-fated wife because he was gay, and she's in a version of Jean Genet's The Maids, opposite Susanna York, which I also highly recommend. It's probably about almost a decade ago now, where Kate Blanchett and Isabelle Huppert were in a stage production of that, which I kicking myself for not having made a point to see. But there's still so many films of hers I haven't seen, but she's to me, I thought she was fascinating.
And then Cormac McCarthy.
Very notable author. I think he was in his 80s. I think All the Pretty Horses, I know, was made into a not well received film adaptation. But the one that I've owned forever, because my mom had a bunch of his stuff, but the one I've owned forever that I've meant to read is Blood Meridian, which I know many like people like Ridley Scott and James Franco can't, both had attempted to get the rights to adapt that, I think. But I've heard that's very good, and I plan on reading it soon.
All right, we'll take another break. The secret film today has some very upsetting subject matter, so this can be a trigger warning. If you don't want to hear about a pedophile, turn this shit off now. But it was Nick's selection, and he chose the 2001 American drama film L.I.E, which stands for Long Island Expressway.
Happy Pride, y'all.
It's directed by Michael Cuesta. I don't know who that is.
His directorial debut.
Why did you choose this movie?
I've always been aware of it, and it comes up on certain lists here and there, and I just had never seen it. And since it's Pride Month, and I was tethered to choosing something queer related, I wanted to see something I hadn't seen.
Which is kind of interesting / problematic, because I feel like the queer, I mean, what is the queer component that this old, like, I wouldn't call this a gay movie.
I wouldn't either.
And I'd be careful to do so, because it's like, this man's a pedophile, and
yes,
not all.
Exactly. So it wasn't what I was expecting, one.
No.
But it ends up on a lot of lists. It won a bunch of awards at gay film festivals. So I had made assumptions, I think. I knew vaguely it was about an inappropriate relationship. Paul Dano makes his screen debut. He won an Independent Spirit Award for it. It competed at Sundance, which something like this, I feel like they wouldn't do that now. I think it's compelling, and also it reminded me of. It speaks to some experiences I had as a kid.
The IMDb description says a 15-year-old Long Island boy loses everything and everyone he knows, soon becoming involved in a relationship with a much older man. This description makes it seem a little more
innocent.
I didn't care for this movie.
I
don't think it's well done enough to justify the subject matter. But the story is that this 15-year-old boy, Howie, played by Paul Dano, who we'll talk about his age, because I don't know that I think he's 15. He seems younger based on some other indications. But Howie lives like this nice middle-class life. His dad is a businessman. The mom has died.
On the Long Island Expressway, yeah.
So the dad is kind of busy with his work, not really paying attention to his son, except for providing for him. And the dad also has a girlfriend who the son doesn't like. But anyway, Howie has a group of raggedy ass friends who get him into doing stuff like skipping school and burglarizing houses. And one of the boys, Gary, Howie seems to be attracted to. And Gary is like he's like an underage kid with tattoos and piercings. He's also a prostitute.
Yeah.
He hangs out like off the Long Island Expressway in some area that I guess is known for underage male prostitutes. But Gary convinces Howie that they should move to California together to start a new life. And of course, Howie's all about it, because I would say he's probably like in love with Gary. But one of the houses they burglarize belongs to a man named Big John, played by
Brian Cox.
And Big John is a full-on pedophile.
Yeah.
And While they burglarize the house and steal two of like his prized possessions, which are these like old guns. Big John's also a veteran. And we find out that Big John knows Gary. Like he's paid for his services, it would seem.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes and finds Gary and says, "What did y'all do with my guns?" And immediately Gary's like, "Well, Howie has them," which is not true. So Big John tricks Howie into getting into his car, pretending that he's like the dead mom's old friend. And then he tells Howie, "I know what you like. I know you broke into my house. I want my shit back." And then he scares Howie enough that Howie feels like, I have to get this man's guns back. He is able to secure one, but not the other. And then Gary has already left to LA, so he's out of the picture. But Howie tells Big John, like, can I work it off?
Mm-hmm.
And Big John's like, yeah, you can have sex with me,
Mm-hmm.
basically. And Howie kind of agrees to that. So it's important to know that Howie's dad is kind of like a shady businessman.
Mm-hmm.
This plot point is so poorly done, but
Yeah.
the dad ends up getting arrested by the FBI and thrown into federal prison,
Mm-hmm.
all in like 1 minute.
And no social services called.
We
about
need
the
to talk
child's
about
name.
that. So Howie's kind of left alone, which intersects with him going to Big John's house to, I guess, start paying off his debt. But the other thing that isn't well done to me is Howie doesn't know his dad is even in legal trouble, let
Mhm.
alone in prison. He just thinks his dad left him. So Big John like tells Howie what's up with his dad inadvertently because he assumed Howie knew, and Howie breaks down because now he feels like he's really alone, and he basically becomes submissive to Big John, like kissing him and saying like, please take care of me. And then we need to talk about this more, but Big John kind of pushes him away, puts him to bed. The next morning makes him breakfast and then takes him to the prison his dad is located and says, go talk to your dad. Here's $20. Take a cab back home.
I'm available to you if you need help.
Right. And we're going to talk more about it. But another important thing to know is Big John had like a live-in boy,
Mm-hmm.
some kid whose name I don't recall.
Scott, I think.
But he's a little older than Howie. And this kid immediately doesn't like Howie because he tells him, like, you're trying to
Take my spot.
take my spot.
Mm-hmm.
So when Big John drops off Howie, he immediately drives to the spot where he knows he can go pick up underage boy prostitutes. And while he's sitting in his car, like looking at the merchandise, guess who rolls up? Scotty,
Mm-hmm.
his little live-in boy. And Scotty shoots and kills him in that car. The end. It's very dramatic. It is very upsetting. I was so uncomfortable watching this movie. I saw this movie in 2003. I remember renting the video from Hollywood Video,
Mm-hmm.
driving back to the condo in Vegas, sitting in my room, putting it in. And I think I had just forgotten about it because it's like the subject matter is upsetting, but then because the movie's not very well done, it just doesn't feel memorable. Like
Just
when we see Big John get shot, I was shocked. I did not
Oh,
remember that at all.
yeah, I was shocked too. Well, I think that's I think the ball is dropped in constructing the life of Howie, who is this bookworm who is very well read. I mean, he's memorized Walt Whitman that he can just
And he
recite.
recognizes like a famous artist
Yeah,
portrait
he
and
sees that Brian Cox has a Chagall painting. Like I wouldn't have. And it just doesn't quite make sense. And I don't know why we needed all the extra drama with the dad to suggest he's actually home alone, because that opens up a bunch of other questions about like nobody's checking on this kid in any regard. We have the guidance counselor played by Marsha DeBonis, who you just saw on Funny Pages recently, who's again playing another very similar kind of warm person, but she tells Howie like, I know you're special. Like, and Brian Cox's character knows he's something different, he's something special, and I don't know that the film is constituting what is. I think Paul Dano does a really good job playing this kid, but I don't. The movie doesn't convey to me what is everybody is seeing that makes him so special.
yeah, I didn't get that either.
Because he's just as raggedy as his little ragamuffin friends.
Right. He reads as raggedy but smart, but then stupid, and then like they think he's gay, but like I don't see what they see. And yeah, I don't think it was well done, but I'm just gonna go through my notes. So his raggedy ass friends. So there's Gary, who's supposed to be like the leader,
It's
and
kind of like a Brad Renfro type.
yeah, like a handsome kid. Like it's obvious. Like to me, it seemed obvious. Like, oh, if Howie is gay, then it would make sense that he really likes Gary. Except that there's another boy in the group who's, I mean, equally as attractive, who kind of defends Howie.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was poorly done because he's like protecting him, but also making fun of him. And then that kid seems a little more, I don't know. It just seemed like that kid didn't need to be a part of this raggedy group.
Mm-hmm.
And then the fourth friend, I think his name is Kevin,
The dumb one.
the dumb one, who's the film opens with him talking about how he is having sex with his sister.
And how she can't get pregnant because she only just started having her period.
It's just like, I don't know. I'm very sensitive to people saying like extreme things, and it's like, oh, you're not reading the room. No one wants to hear the shit. Like it makes
Mm-hmm.
you look kind of gross. Like, why are you doing this? This is how this movie made me feel. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's doing a little bit too much.
It is.
So there's this incest component, plus this damn pedophile, plus the boy's mom died, the dad's been arrested by the FBI. Like,
I think it was meant, it's a debut. I think it was meant to be provoking, and it certainly does. I just think that the same thing could have been told with a little more finesse. I would have loved to see like Pasolini direct something like this.
then the dad, on top of that character, I think being poorly constructed, I didn't care for the actor's performance.
Bruce Altman, he's in a ton of stuff, but yes, again, the scene where he actually punches his kid is pretty bad.
Yeah, because it starts with him like on the phone, and it was very The Room to me, like him
Mm-hmm.
just shouting into a phone, and then he's driving this BMW convertible, and he pulls into he sees his kid skipping school with Gary, and he like stops the car, shouts, slams the door, breaks the window of his car. Like that seemed crazy.
And this is after his lawyer dies in front of him at a
Oh, we didn't
diner,
even mention that. Yes.
which
The
after the
dad's lawyer slash friend, who's really inappropriate,
Mhm.
has a damn heart attack and dies. And then we get a scene.
where
So we get that scene, then we get the extension of it, which is the ambulance coming to pick him up.
Mhm.
We didn't need that.
we didn't need that because the lawyer was protecting him from legal trouble. He knew just what to do. It's like, well, you can get another lawyer then, I guess. And
The,
then and then he goes back to that diner with his kid.
yeah,
What
like this is not the site of some serious event. But
does the staff want to see you again, sir? I wouldn't go back to that diner.
also there's a scene where the dad is flossing his teeth, and then he smells the dental floss.
The dad's going through like a midlife crisis because he's always shirtless at home and he's like, I lost 5 pounds. He's doing this
Yeah,
like,
he has his son look at his body like, can you tell I lost 5 pounds, and how he's kind of grossed out.
and he has like role playing sex with this woman. He's playing like a construction worker.
And he's being very loud, like his son can hear him, his dad
Mhm.
having sex. It was just a lot. It was cartoonish.
It was
and
cartoonish. Yeah.
But yeah, have you? Do people smell their dental floss? I don't
I
know.
don't know.
I mean, I know like if you like, I'll look at my dental floss to see was I successful in getting something out, but I don't smell the shit.
Mm-mm.
Um, okay, so when the boys rob Big John's house, Big John hears them and he comes downstairs, and we hear one of the kids calling him like a dirty cocksucker,
Mhm.
which made me think like, oh, immediately I knew Big John's probably done
He's a creep.
inappropriate
Yeah.
things with these boys. But then Big John comes down into the basement and he grabs Howie and rips like a part of his jeans
He
off.
rips a pocket off the back. Yeah.
And then he starts sniffing it, which was so creepy. And then the next scene is Big John driving around the neighborhood, looking at boys and smelling the.
He's smelling the pocket, which is so creepy because it's like something out of a fairy, like he's a witch. And
Yeah, or like a perverted bloodhound.
and it's one of the only uses of music that I recall in the film, which I thought that was a very effective scene where Donovan's Hurdy Gurdy Man is playing.
Oh yes,
because I think that sounds creepy anyway. But
Howie's friend Gary wasn't shit because he ratted him out so fast. He didn't even try to like get in contact with Howie before he left to California. It's just like, ugh, what a garbage boy.
it also there were elements of it that reminded me of like Dennis Cooper and of course Mysterious Skin.
When these Again, I just don't think this is a well-made film. Like the boys are just like burglarizing homes in broad daylight.
They're brandishing these pistols in broad daylight on
Oh,
the corner of
then
some street.
yeah, when they that was crazy as hell to me. Like Gary and Howie have Big John's guns, and they're just out on like a main intersection playing with these guns.
And also how the prostitutes are right. Ironically, I think supposed to be welcome to Long Island, and there's these young men standing beneath it, but they're like men crouched right in the bushes, like you can see them from the expressway.
I didn't think that was well done. Like that can't be how that
In the
goes.
middle of daylight,
In the middle
no.
of daylight, and all these young boys wearing muscle shirts, like hanging out by the sign, and then all these people driving by, cruising them. That seemed weird to
There's a
me.
little more discretion used in those spots, I know.
Then when Big John is trying to seduce Howie at a like when he first brings him to his house, Big John's mom is still alive because Brian Cox looks old as hell. I mean, he looks like he's in his late 60s. So it's like
This is his 55th birthday.
he's supposed to be
Yeah,
55.
it's his 55th birthday in the
Y'all
movie.
need to take care of yourselves because that's not going to be me at 55. But yeah, because he looked like he was in his late 60s. So I'm like, God, his mom must be like 90 something. But anyway, the mom calls and leaves a voice message. And back in the day with answering machines, the message was played out loud on the speaker. So we hear the mom, while this pedophile is trying to seduce this young
He's
boy,
grooming this kid.
the mom calls talking about Johnny or whatever his name is, like, you didn't blah blah blah. Did you make it to the doctor to get your hemorrhoids checked out? Like, oh no. The diner that the lawyer or friend dies in is called Dick's Hills.
Yeah.
What an awful name. I wonder if that's an actual restaurant.
It probably is. They didn't have the budget to change any.
Speaking of the score, the scene where, because Gary comes over to Howie's house once and sees the dad putting a bunch of money like in an envelope in some drawer. So of course the boy comes back later and steals the money. So then later on, there's a scene where the dad is looking for the money and can't find it. And he's freaking out. The score that was playing during that scene was awful. Then all of a sudden, there's someone knocking at the door. The dad runs downstairs, and then it's like two FBI agents, and they just like shove their badge into the camera, like FBI. I thought that was horrible. And then it turns into like a comedy where the dad is like running in the lawn from like the FBI with
shouting, "This is so unfair! It's my neighborhood." Okay.
I thought that was really poorly done.
Again, unnecessary. I think it would have been just so much more powerful to have Howie, this kid whose parents just don't understand him. They're very middle of the road, middle brow people.
Then I think so. There's a scene in this film when Howie is at Big John's house and he's rummaging through one of the rooms, like in one of the drawers. He finds like Polaroid pictures of young boys. So clearly Big John is, molesting a lot of young boys. And so we see all these pictures. And then it made me think of Mysterious Skin and that guy taking pictures of the boy. And again, I just thought this movie is not well done enough to justify me being so uncomfortable with what I'm seeing.
Right.
Like,
and I don't think Michael Cuesta's gay. And I think his brother was one of the co-writers. And I don't know if somebody was on here, but, for your first film, I think I was uncomfortable.
Well, I don't think it's a gay. I don't think being a child molester is about your sexuality.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't mean to collapse it. Like, I'm talking about like somebody's queer experiences. I'm talking about myself here, where this would have been something that maybe I could have seen myself wanting to write as a form of expiation because some of these things happen to me.
I think the thing that makes, if I'm using Mysterious Skin as an example, I think the reason that screenplay works, especially with the character Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays, is that we get a sense of his feelings because he's kind of saying like, it's a very sensitive topic, but I think like if you're gay, like these things didn't happen to me, but like being a gay man and then thinking like, oh, if I were 13 and an older man had done something with me and maybe I found that man attractive, maybe I would look at it as like it wasn't a bad thing because I was curious and I did like what was happening. And Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character expresses that in the film, that he liked it because he likes men. so it's like the complexity of that I think works very well in a film like Mysterious Skin, but in this movie it's just like I'm so confused about who Howie is as a person, and then
As he is, I think too. But
and the actual production feels kind of like not well done. I will say Brian Cox's character Big John is written well, I think,
and
because
he's
I
I
did feel like I've met a lot of men like that,
mhm.
not as an underage boy, but as an adult. I've met some people who are really I've met some people who have done some really inappropriate things, and the way they talk about them is like, oh, this is like I should call the police. Like, what are you talking about? So I thought that was well done.
and
That's about the only thing that was well
I
done.
think Brian Cox gives I think an actor of his caliber even taking on this role was a
Yeah.
big deal.
When the scene where Big John is telling his boy Scotty, like basically like because he has this new boy at the house, Howie. So he tells Scotty, like, I need you to go stay at the motel for a few
You're
days.
gonna have to go kick rocks for a little bit.
Basically, and then it was really creepy because he's looking at him like, yeah, thanks. Big John is telling Scotty, and then he's touching his hair like, God, your hair got so dark. Which makes it so clearly he's saying you got too
You
old.
got to. It's like a puppy. Yeah.
Yeah, I want a boyish young
Yeah.
man. And even though this kid is clearly young, he's probably like what 18. Like he's way too old. That was very unsettling.
Yeah.
Okay, the question of Howie's age. So he says he's 16, but he also says he's 15. Then when the final towards the end when Howie goes to visit his dad, and the dad ain't shit. The dad is
No.
the first question out of the dad's mouth is not how are you? Where have you been sleeping? He asked him something about him like
I didn't do it right.
like dad, I'm a kid and you're and no one's taking care of me. You don't care. But
He's like, well, maybe I'll call Aunt Marilyn.
maybe
You
you'll
didn't think
call.
of that already?
But Howie says, I just need money. And the dad gives Howie the PIN number to his debit card or ATM card, or for those who remember the Versateller card. And the PIN number is 7886. And Howie goes, that's my birthday. So then it's like, so then this boy.
Because it's like we see a calendar that says October 2000. So it's like you're.
So you just turned 14 then. So that makes it more unsettling. Like, because at first I thought, oh, is the age of consent 16? Because I didn't remember the movie. So I was like, oh, is
that why Brian Cox is asking?
Is this creepy old man like doing borderline shit? Like,
it's not borderline.
It's not borderline. No. These boys are underage. And the pictures we see of the boys, these are like, they look like 10, 11.
They're children. Yeah.
They're full on children. So that was really uncomfortable. But again, because I think that portrayal of the dad is kind of a joke, that scene didn't hit. I feel like that moment as the audience when we realized like, oh my God, this little boy we've been watching the entire movie is actually younger than we thought, should have hit me like a ton of bricks. And instead I was just like, oh hell no. Oh hell no. So this boy is actually 14 is too much. It's too much. But not too much in the sense that I'm not saying this doesn't happen. I know it happens. I know, like, I just don't think this was well done.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this should. I don't know. It's not well constructed. I think in several ways, but that doesn't mean that it still doesn't leave a lasting impression. Questo, I saw his film after this, 12 and Holding, which has similar vibes about as a 12-year-old, and Jeremy Renner's in it. And I haven't seen that since the year it came out, but he worked with Jeremy Renner again in Kill the Messenger, which was a film I also remember liking. But I don't know, just again, I can't keep going back to like, this is a curious, I would want to know the reason why this subject was chosen by this director for a first film.
Well, even like the story you've been writing recently, that because I think I'm a part of the process of coming up with the story. For me, it's very important that the story be provocative, like thought provoking, and I like the idea of a story ending where it's like, as the audience, I feel conflicted. And so I think what you're working on now, once we can talk about it, I feel like we'll achieve that. And I don't know that this film does that because it's like clearly what's happening is wrong. And there are very few things I'm questioning about the story. Like, it's just like, this is awful and
Mhm.
sick.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing we talked about was how important it is, I think, for anyone who is a guardian or a parent of a teenager or a kid. I mean, really, just any kid, recognizing that kids get up to things
Hmm.
that like you'd be surprised. And I can't even imagine. And I'm just thinking about, 30 years ago when I was 13. But nowadays, like the stuff people can get into
And are exposed to and have access
because of
to. I
technology
mean, it was because, in the late 90s, it was the internet that was able to allow certain people to have access to me,
is so scary to me. And the other thing we talked about is I have met a lot of people over the years who have that vibe of Big John, where
Hmm.
they have like a routine, a method, they have tastes
They're
and
groomed.
fetishes,
Hmm.
and they know how to get what they want. And that energy is very upsetting. Obviously, in certain cases, illegal, but even when it's not, even if it's just like, oh,
Oh, you can groom adults. Yeah.
yeah, I like tiny Asian guys. And
Hmm.
that's even, all of it is problematic because it's just like fetishizing people, manipulating people, abusing people.
Hmm.
And then when you recognize it, like I had a roommate in college who had a thing for young men, sometimes in a way that I believe was inappropriate. I can't prove that. So, but um, he had a he had a method. He would do the same thing with every
Hmm.
guy because he knew that these behaviors would impress them because they're young. Like,
Hmm.
oh my God, you have your own place, your own car. He would, he had a sequence of events that he would do and it would always yield the same result. And I think watching this character, Big John, it was very obvious that this person like had a shtick
Hmm.
and how effective it is and how we need to prepare. If we're just talking about this kind of behavior and whatnot, like how do we prepare young people?
I don't think you can't. They're stubborn and they want to experience these things. Speaking for myself when I was a kid, and like I thought I was old enough to handle. I thought I understood things and was mature enough to do it. And you just don't. It's you're naive. But and sometimes you gotta. I don't know. As humans, I think sometimes people got to be burned to learn not to touch the hot stove, right? But uh, I don't know if there's a way to really prepare people, but also pay attention to behaviors that are being exhibited because what I think once you start experiencing some of these things, you know your behavior, you can tell sometimes that things are going on. And
I mean, I'm not a child development expert and I don't have kids, but I think, and I can't base it off my own experiences because I think I was kept safe for reasons that are very specific. So I imagine that what would work is having very honest conversations
yeah,
with young
yeah.
people, like early on, and preparing them for things they might see.
Well, and I think it's
Because
important.
you think like if you're like a little gay boy like I was, and then if your dad, let's say, wants to talk to you about sex, they're going to talk to you about sex in a way that doesn't apply to me.
Right.
So my dad telling me there's enough sperm on the tip of a needle to get a girl pregnant, it's like, I don't know
I
that I
got you.
like. Okay, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not going to really have to probably deal with that. Like
Hmm.
when I remember having that conversation with him at 15, maybe, and it's like that's so not something that I think I need to worry about.
Hmm.
I don't know. I don't know anything about anything.
Well, to me it'd be
But when you were that age, you were like 100 times more experienced than I
uh-huh.
was. So then it's like, then if your dad tried to have the same conversation with you, it'd be like,
And he did.
too late.
His advice was if you're about to have sex with a girl, just grab your nuts real hard. Like, okay.
But
Uh,
not to shit on
no,
people's
but
methods.
I think what open communication that is not one that is instigating some sort of shame. It just if you're my kid, be open to me, talk to me about how you're feeling.
Do you have do you have more to say?
No.
Because we have like 60 seconds
Oh,
left.
then I guess no.
I mean, we can keep going, but I have to
Gone in
take a
six,
break.
gone in 60 seconds.
Okay. Well then, yeah, we have to end right now.
Okay.
Do you have any final words?
No.
Toodaloo.